You've probably noticed something strange happening in your workplace, in politics, on social media. The people who sound the most certain are often the most wrong. The loudest voices in the room frequently have the least to say, and somehow they keep winning. Here's what nobody wants to admit. This isn't an accident. It's not bad luck. It's the system working exactly as designed. In the 4th century BC, Plato warned of the sophists, masters of persuasive speech who simulated wisdom without possessing any. Today, we don't call them sophists. We call them executives, influencers, and thought leaders. This is about the dark psychology of how confident incompetence hijacks modern institutions. Why people who sound certain beat people who are correct. Why simplicity defeats accuracy every single time, and why the performance of competence systematically destroys actual competence. By the end of this video, you'll see the invisible game being played right in front of you, and more importantly, how to stop being a victim of it. Here's the fundamental vulnerability. Your brain cannot directly measure competence. Competence is invisible until proven through results, and results take time. So evolution gave your brain a shortcut. Confidence signals competence. This made sense for most of human history. In small tribal groups, incompetent leaders got themselves killed quickly. Natural selection handled the filtering. But in complex modern systems where consequences are delayed and diffused, this shortcut has become catastrophic. In a famous 1970 study known as the Dr. Fox effect, researchers hired an actor to give a lecture on game theory to psychiatrists, psychologists, and social workers. The actor, given the fake title Dr. Myron L. Fox, knew nothing about game theory. He delivered his lecture with warmth, enthusiasm, and confidence while saying absolutely nothing of substance. The result? The professionals rated him highly. They found the lecture clear and stimulating. These were trained experts in human behavior, and confidence completely overrode their ability to detect the absence of content. This plays out in every job interview, every boardroom, every election. The mental effort of parsing a careful, nuanced response feels like work. The effortless clarity of a confident, simple answer feels like truth. And our brains, being lazy, choose the path of least resistance every time. But here's what makes this truly insidious. Once someone gains authority through this mechanism, the authority itself becomes evidence of competence. People think they must know what they're doing. Otherwise, how do they get that position? In Stanley Milgram's famous experiments, ordinary people administered what they believed were dangerous electric shocks simply because someone in a lab coat told them to. The symbol of authority overrode moral judgment. Think about your own workplace. How many leaders did you assume were competent simply because they already had the title? Let's look at what happens when this pattern plays out at scale, because the consequences aren't abstract. They're devastating. In 2003, Elizabeth Holmes founded Theranos with a bold claim. Her company could run hundreds of medical tests from a single drop of blood. She spoke with unwavering confidence, wore black turtlenecks like Steve Jobs, and projected absolute certainty about revolutionizing healthcare. By 2014, Theranos was valued at $9 billion. There was one problem. The technology didn't work. It was scientifically impossible with existing methods. Medical experts who understood blood testing knew this immediately, but they weren't in the room when investment decisions were made. When the Wall Street Journal exposed the fraud in 2015, it emerged that Theranos had been using traditional blood testing machines for most tests, and when they did use their own device, the results were dangerously inaccurate. Patients received false diagnoses. Some were told they were miscarrying when they weren't. Others received incorrect cancer markers. The forensic question isn't just, how did Holmes fool everyone? It's, why did confidence override expertise at every checkpoint? Investors with no medical background believed her over scientists who raised concerns. Board members, including Henry Kissinger and George Shultz, lent credibility without understanding the science media outlets amplified her story without technical vetting. But this pattern isn't new. In 1845, British Rear Admiral Sir John Franklin confidently led an expedition to find the Northwest Passage through the Arctic. Franklin was celebrated, knighted, and had powerful supporters, but he had never actually commanded a polar expedition before. His confidence came from his rank and social standing, not Arctic expertise. Against the advice of experienced Arctic explorers and indigenous people who knew the region, Franklin insisted on bringing heavy naval ships unsuited for ice, formal dining silver instead of practical supplies, and provisions that included canned food with lead soldering, which slowly poisoned the crew. He dismissed concerns about his route as pessimism from people who lacked vision. All 129 men died. The expedition became one of history's worst Arctic disasters. Meanwhile, explorers who listened to indigenous knowledge and admitted what they didn't know, like Roald Amundsen decades later, succeeded where Franklin's confidence failed catastrophically. The pattern repeats across centuries. Confident incompetence doesn't just win small victories. It captures entire systems, and when those systems fail, the damage is measured in lost lives, bankruptcies, and catastrophic waste. The question you should be asking is, where is this pattern operating in your industry right now? And what's the ticking time bomb nobody's talking about? Now here's where it gets worse. The mechanisms that allowed confident incompetence to succeed throughout history are being amplified by modern systems in ways we've never seen before. Social media might be the strongest example of this. Its algorithms boost people who sound absolutely certain, not those who think carefully. A cardiologist who says, "We need more research, but current evidence suggests this," might get 50 likes. But an influencer shouting, "Doctors don't want you to know this one secret," gets 5 million views. It's not about truth anymore. It's about confidence. Research by MIT found that false information spreads 6 times faster than true information on social media. Why? False claims tend to be more novel and emotionally arousing. They're designed for engagement, not accuracy. And they're almost always delivered with absolute confidence. The credential inflation crisis makes this worse. In the 1960s, having a college degree meant something specific. Today, everyone has degrees, certifications, and impressive LinkedIn titles. The signals that used to help distinguish competence from performance have been flooded with noise, so people rely even more heavily on confidence as a filter. Remote work, paradoxically, amplifies the pattern. When you can't directly observe someone's work process, you judge them on their presentation in meetings, their email tone, their video call presence. The person doing deep, complex work that requires quiet focus becomes invisible. The person who's always on, always projecting confidence in every interaction, appears more valuable. But perhaps the most insidious amplifier is complexity itself. In 1970, you could reasonably understand most of your company's operations. Today, systems are so complex that no one fully understands them. This creates more room for confident incompetence to hide. When systems are opaque, you can't verify claims, so confidence becomes the only signal. Think about the last major decision made in your organization. How many people who voted on it actually understood the technical details? And did the decision go to the person with the best analysis or the best presentation? The gap between performance and substance is widening, and most people don't realize they're standing on the wrong side of it. While confident incompetence are being amplified by modern systems, genuinely competent people are often trapped by their own awareness. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. This isn't false modesty, it's pattern recognition. As you develop expertise, you encounter edge cases that don't fit neat models. You see where theories break down. You recognize how many variables you can't control. A competent engineer says, probably 3 months, assuming we don't hit complications with the legacy integration. An incompetent product manager says, 2 weeks, Who does leadership believe? Usually the confident timeline because it's easier to understand and more pleasant to hear. But here's the darker pattern. Incompetent people seem immune to failure while competent people are punished for honesty. When the 2-week timeline becomes 4 months, the incompetent person reframes it. We moved fast and learned what works. That's the agile mindset. Or they blame execution. The engineering team couldn't deliver on the vision. Research on attribution bias shows people naturally attribute success to skill and failure to circumstances, but confident incompetents take this to an extreme. They're always the hero of their own story. Meanwhile, the competent person who gave the honest 3-month estimate gets labeled as not a team player or lacking can-do attitude, even when they deliver exactly on time. There's also what researchers call the good work speaks for itself fallacy. Competent people focus on execution, while incompetent people focus on visibility. But decision makers don't have time to evaluate everyone's work deeply. They rely on signals, and the loudest signals come from people confident about their contributions, not people making the best contributions. Adam Neumann, founder of WeWork, is a perfect example. He confidently pitched WeWork as a technology company revolutionizing real estate, not a real estate company leasing office space. At its peak, WeWork was valued at $47 billion. Behind the scenes, the business model was fundamentally broken. They signed long-term leases and rented short-term, creating massive risk. Financial analysts who understood real estate knew this was unsustainable. But Neumann's confidence captivated investors. He spoke about elevating the world's consciousness and created a reality distortion field so powerful that SoftBank invested billions. When WeWork's IPO filing revealed the chaos, the valuation collapsed 90% in weeks. Neumann walked away with hundreds of millions. The competent analysts who warned about the fundamentals, nobody remembers their names. Have you ever held back from sharing what you really knew because you'd seen honest analysis get punished before? At this point, you might think this is about bad individuals gaming good systems. But the uncomfortable truth is deeper. Our systems are structurally incapable of distinguishing confident competent from confident incompetent. Modern organizations are too complex for anyone at the top to understand everything. CEOs can't know the details of every department. Voters can't become experts in every policy area. Investors can't deeply analyze every startup. So they use proxies, and the easiest proxy is confidence. Research from multiple universities reveals a devastating pattern. Narcissists, people characterized by high confidence regardless of actual ability, consistently receive higher ratings in job interviews and assessment centers, especially in brief interactions where most hiring decisions are made. The system isn't just biased toward confidence, it's scientifically optimized to select for it. This creates what researchers call competence cascades. An incompetent leader hires people who won't threaten them, other confident incompetents or loyalists who won't ask hard questions. Each layer of management becomes less capable than the layer above. Within 3 years, institutional knowledge evaporates. Senior experts leave or are pushed out, replaced by people who excel at politics rather than execution. But here's the nuance nobody talks about. We can't eliminate confidence from the equation. Organizations cannot function if every decision is mired in endless analysis paralysis. People who can make decisive calls under uncertainty are genuinely valuable. The confident, competent person, someone with deep expertise who can also communicate with clarity, is rare and powerful. The real problem is that our systems treat all confidence as equal. When confident competent and confident incompetent look identical to decision makers, incompetence gets systematically promoted alongside competence. And because incompetent people actively avoid hiring people smarter than themselves, while competent people seek out talent, the ratio skews over time. You can see this in the 2016 election. The people who said, "There's a decent chance, but not a guarantee," were actually the most accurate, yet they were ignored. while the loudest, most confident voices took the spotlight. It shows how voters, and even the media, reward certainty over truth. The question isn't whether confidence matters. It does. The question is whether we can build systems that distinguish between confidence built on expertise and confidence built on ignorance. Right now, we're failing at this, and the consequences compound daily. So where does this leave you? Drowning in a sea of confident incompetence with no life raft? Not quite. There are strategies, and more importantly, there are pockets of sanity where this pattern is weaker. Let me show you both. First, build your inner citadel. The Stoics had a concept called the inner citadel, a fortress of principles that external chaos cannot shake. Your commitment to truth and competence must exist independent of whether the system rewards it. This isn't resignation. It's the philosophical grounding that prevents you from becoming cynical or abandoning your standards when the world seems to reward their opposite. When you see obviously incompetent people promoted, it creates cognitive dissonance. The system seems insane, but your inner citadel says, I pursue excellence because it aligns with my values, not because I expect immediate recognition. This is playing a different game with different scorekeeping. Second, master confident competence. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You need to learn to communicate expertise without hedging excessively. This doesn't mean becoming confidently incompetent, it means bridging the gap. Use this simple framework when you speak. First, say what we know for sure. Then quickly mention the evidence. After that, be honest about what's still uncertain. And finally, explain how you're going to deal with that uncertainty. This makes you sound confident, clear, and intellectually honest at the same time. As Bertrand Russell observed, the whole problem with the world is that fools and fanatics are always so certain of themselves, and wiser people so full of doubts. You're learning to bridge this gap, maintaining epistemological humility internally while developing rhetorical effectiveness externally. Third, build accountability into systems. If you have any influence over how decisions are made, weaponize accountability. Document predictions. Track outcomes. Follow up on claims ruthlessly. When someone confidently declares a project will take 2 weeks, write it down publicly. When it takes 4 months, that documented gap becomes evidence when they try to spin it as a learning experience, point to the written record. Accountability is incompetence's natural predator because it prevents narrative reframing. Fourth, seek fields where competence can't be faked. Not all industries are equally captured by confident incompetence. Some fields have faster feedback loops or harder metrics that make performance visible. Surgery has a brutal feedback loop. The patient either survives or doesn't. Professional sports have clear performance metrics. Open source software development has public code that either works or breaks. These fields aren't immune to confident incompetence, but the nonsense gets filtered faster. Meanwhile, fields like consulting, management, marketing, and politics have longer feedback loops and fuzzier metrics. These become breeding grounds for confident incompetence because results can be endlessly reframed. If you're early in your career, consider the feedback loop speed of your chosen field. If you're stuck in a field with slow loops, focus obsessively on creating your own faster feedback mechanisms. Fifth, know when to exit. Finally, recognize when you're in a system that can't be fixed. Some organizations are so captured by confident incompetence that reform is impossible. The incompetent have built self-reinforcing networks that filter out competence at every level. If your inner citadel is constantly under siege in a system fundamentally hostile to competence, your best strategic move may be to find a new fortress. Exit isn't defeat. It's strategic clarity about where to invest your finite energy and talent. The confident idiots will always be with us, but they don't control every room, every company, every field. Your job is to find the pockets of sanity, strengthen them, and resist capture or build your own. We've explored one of the most uncomfortable truths about modern civilization. Our systems are structured to promote confident incompetence over careful expertise, and it's getting worse. The mechanisms are clear. Our brains use confidence as a proxy for competence, an evolutionary shortcut that made sense in small groups, but fails catastrophically in complex systems. Modern amplifiers like social media, credential inflation, and increasing complexity are widening the gap between performance and substance. And our institutions can't distinguish between confidence built on expertise and confidence built on ignorance. The consequences aren't abstract. Theranos put patience at risk. WeWork vaporized billions in value. In your own organization, confident incompetents are probably making decisions right now that will cause failures you'll inherit later. But you're not helpless. Build your inner citadel, your commitment to competence independent of external validation. Master confident competence. Learn to communicate expertise effectively. Create accountability that prevents narrative reframing. Seek fields where competence can't be faked. And know when a system is too captured to save. Plato's sophists are still with us. They just have LinkedIn profiles and TED Talks. But so is Socrates, who valued truth over performance, admitted ignorance rather than faking expertise, and asked hard questions that exposed the confident incompetence of his time. The question is, which legacy will you embody? If this video changed how you see confidence, competence, and the systems that confuse them, subscribe for more investigations into how the modern world actually works. Drop a comment sharing your experiences with confident incompetence. I read everyone, and your stories matter. Until next time, stay sharp, demand evidence, and remember, the most dangerous person in the room is often the one who sounds the most certain.